Welcome once again to another version of Tax Watch, brought to you by the concerned taxpayers of Duval County in cooperation with Comcast Television. My name's Tony Bates. I'm going to be your host today. Normally on this show, we try to bring you information about how your administration and your city council is handling your tax dollars. But for the next 3 months or so, we're going to be bringing you information about the local city elections. We put together some information to try and help you with making choices about who to vote for. With me today to help bring you this information are our president, is our current president in his second term, Victor Wilhelm. Victor, thanks for being with us and thanks for leading our group.
Thanks, Tony.
Victor's been very active in a lot of community organizations, and we've been fortunate to have him as our leader for the next couple of years. The next person I want to introduce is John Winkler. He's a former president. He's a practicing attorney here in town. In fact, he just left the courtroom to get here now to make it to this taping. And John is our campaign committee chair, candidate committee chair, and he has put all this information together. And John, will you try and tell the viewers what we're going to try and do today, what this information is about, how it's put together, what it's for, kind of go through the process and then move on into the presentation you want to make.
Well, sure, Tony. This is in connection with the city council elections. We sent out a questionnaire survey to all of the candidates back in December. We have assembled the results of the survey into a chart and have responses from most of the candidates that are running. And essentially what we're doing is we're comparing what the candidates who are not incumbents say they would have done with the votes of the incumbents on 7 different votes. We consider these to be very crucial areas. They involve fiscal responsibility. They involve whether or not the candidate's in favor of no bid contracting or forbidding of public contracts, and also a question regarding ethics in government. So essentially I could launch right in here in at-large group 1, and that's somebody that everybody gets to vote for. We have 5 at-large groups in the city, and there are contests in 4 of those groups. The first candidate who responded to our survey was Steve Burnett. He did not answer the way we would have liked him to answer in connection with the landfill contract. That's the Trail Ridge contract, which was the largest contract in this city's history, and it wound up going out on a no-bid basis. He would have favored that. He also voted against adding ethics to the charter, which was a vote that came up recently. We believe that an ethics commission in the charter is a very important thing. Nonetheless, based on our rating, he'd have a 71% rating by the concerned taxpayer scale. 2 other candidates didn't respond. David Taylor, who actually has signs that say that he's fiscally responsible on his campaign signs, didn't respond to our survey regarding fiscal responsibility. And Kimberly Daniels, who jumped into the race at the last minute, may not have had an opportunity to respond yet, in fairness to her.
It doesn't look too good about the people that don't respond. Can we move over to now to Victor? Could you talk about Group 2?
Sure,
Tell
Tony.
us what we want the viewers to know about Group 2.
I'd love to tell you about Group 2. In Group 2, we've got 4 candidates running. John Crescenbenny, who's historically been a friend of the taxpayers, you know. Tom Patton, local television personality. Vince Serrano, and Paul Martinez, who did not bother to respond. And again, I want to reiterate that did not respond. Candidates who get in late to the race, we understand that they may not have had an opportunity, but if you had our take-home quiz, so to speak, and you don't respond, if you don't turn in your take-home quiz, it's kind of like a 0. But in any event, jumping right into the score, it looks like John Crescenbenny scores a 71%. He, unfortunately, this year, he did vote for doubling the garbage tax and also voted to increase the pension benefit for jailers. Again, Mr. Crescenbenny at 71%. Tom Patton apparently did not know how he would have voted on 4 of the pieces of legislation that we're tracking. His score currently is at 14%. And Vince Serrano scores very high so far at 86%. Unfortunately, the only zinger for Mr. Serrano is he was not in favor of adding ethics back to the charter. And coming in at dead last is Mr. Martinez, who has not responded. So
go ahead and mention the third one too while you're with it.
At-large Group 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, At-large Group 3 does bear mentioning that it was Stephen Just. He is unopposed, and unfortunately, he is unopposed, and his score is about 14%. So maybe next time around in Group 3, we'll have a more competitive race.
How about Group 4 at large, John?
Well, in Group 4 at large, we have 3 candidates. 2 of them have responded to our survey, and they're tied. Juan Diaz and Jim Robinson. And again, I want to emphasize at this point, we're not endorsing anybody. These are just raw scores. We'll be going through an additional process where we're also interviewing the mayoral candidates and other candidates prior to making any endorsements if we in fact do so. But again, Greg Anderson has not responded. And in one of these instances, don't know, as far as we're concerned, counts as a 0. We're not giving half credit because you don't know how you would have voted. Group 5, Victor?
Yeah.
Group 5 is a very competitive race. Looks like we have 6 candidates: Robin Lund, Sean Hall, Fred Angus, Don Foy, Michael Tapuni, excuse me.
Michelle.
Oh, I did my best. Robin Rukab. Of the 6, apparently 4 did not respond. Mr. Hall, Mr. Angus, Mr. Foy, and Mr. Rukab. A 0 on their take-home test for now. And Michelle Tapini apparently does not know. She did bother to turn in the response. She scores 14%. And so far, leading in this race in Group 3, the raw score, Mr. Lum comes in at 100% across the board. So Mr. Lum looks like he's doing very well. And the other candidates, I encourage you to do your homework so when you come in for your interviews with us, you can expand on your did not respond or did not know.
All right, well, that covers all the at-large, right? We've got all the citywide races. Now, everybody can vote for the people we just talked about.
Yeah,
everybody in the city, because you have 5 at-large council members, and then you have 1 district member. So you actually have 6 representatives in council. So that's our at-large races. And let me remind everybody while we're at this point, all this information we're giving you here now will be posted on our webpage at jackstaxpayers.org, www.jackstaxpayers.org. You will find all this information. There'll be more information we'll talk about maybe later on that'll be found there. This information will also be found at the First Coast Tea Party website, FCTP. You can find all that there, or you can call our telephone number at 904, if you have any questions, 904-351-8126. We'll repeat this information before we close out, so you need to get a pen and pencil so that you can go look at our webpage and find. We're going to give you a lot of candidate information there. Okay, gentlemen, you ready to go into the district races?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Okay, John, you want to start out with District 1?
Certainly, and District 1 is over in the Arlington area. The incumbent there is Clay Yarborough, who has even received the Friend of the Taxpayer Award from this organization in the past. And one thing I'll note here, we are not putting any partisan labels on our results. There will be party labels in the actual ballot, but from our point of view, it really doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican or you have no party affiliation. What we care about is whether or not you're going to show the kind of responsibility in local government that we think people need to have. And Clay Yarborough actually scores a 100% on the basis of these 7 votes. He has 2 opponents in this race. Darrell Fleming, who did not know what his answer would have been in 4 cases, and winds up with, as a result, with a 28%. Lindsey Brock actually submitted an answer but refused to answer most of the questions, so he only has a 14%.
Will that take care of all District 1?
That's it for District 1. There are 3 choices there. If nobody gets more than 50%, then obviously they'll go on after March 22nd to the second election.
Victor, let's take 2 and 3 and 4. Let's run through the next 4 or 5 districts.
Very good, Tony. We'll do that right now. For District 2, we've got Bill Bishop, who's the incumbent, and Stephen Heckel, who did not respond. So take-home test is 0. The incumbent Bill Bishop scores a 57% on our scale, with voting for the doubling the garbage tax and increasing pension benefit for jailers, and the Everbank naming rights fee transfer to the Jaguars. He did vote for that, but he did vote against the tax increase this year, the no bid contract for Trail Ridge, and he is in favor of adding ethics to the charter. Unfortunately, Mr. Heckel, we do not know how he would have voted on any of those things, so it looks like Bishop is at 57% and Heckel at 0.
Go ahead and
Take
go on
3?
down to the next couple.
Okay, in District 3, we've got Richard Clark, who scores a 43%. He's the incumbent. And then we have Mario Rubio, relation to Marco Rubio, apparently. He's also running at 86% is his score, and it bears mentioning that he does not know how he would have voted for increasing the pension benefit to the jailers. So that puts Richard Clark at 43% and Mario Rubio at 86%. And let me jump on into 4. Mr. Redmond, Don Redmond, the incumbent, is unopposed, and his current score, for what it's worth, is 43%, but unopposed, so it looks like he's going to be sitting in council.
He's going to be elected. Okay, John, how about let's take in the next couple of districts?
Sure, and I might say, obviously, if your district council person ran unopposed, you will not have an opportunity to vote for or against them in the upcoming election. But you will be able to vote for those 4 at-large candidates that we were talking about before. In District 5, Steve Hires is the only person who's returned our well, that's not true. He's the only person who responded on our survey. 3 of the candidates returned the survey, but 2 of them refused to answer our questions.
Who were they?
Those would be Lori Boyer and Fritz Van Volkenberg. They have a rationale for having refused to answer. They did, in fact, give us written responses. We may post those in part or in full at some future point. But as of now, their responses were that they were not going to answer our questions regarding specific votes. Jack Daniels did not respond at all. Steve Hires didn't know how he would have voted on 3 instances. So based on his 4 responses, he has a 58% rating with us.
All right, before you move into 6, what are our thoughts? Are we going to give people who haven't responded here that we're reporting on television, will they have a chance to respond maybe so we could include that information on our webpage?
Well, absolutely. As I say, Robin Rucab and Kimberly Daniels both came into the races very late, and I extended them an opportunity to file a response. They acknowledged that they received it. We've sent out the survey questionnaire several times. Some of the candidates, amazingly enough, do not have email addresses, and so it's hard to reach them. You would think that a political candidate in this day and age would at least have an email address, but we welcome any supplemental responses that come in, and we're going to be updating this as they come in and posting them. And getting them published, I trust.
And if they respond, we will get their responses up on our webpage. So you need to continually check our webpage every day or 2. We'll give you more candidate information. We'll give you more about what's going to be on the webpage. John, hurriedly, let's move on into race 6,
yeah,
and then we'll go on to
6,
Victor.
Greg Youngblood, again, is one of those candidates. He qualified on the last day that you could qualify. And we've been in communication with him. We expect his response shortly, but as at this point, we don't have one. Matt Schellenberg is another challenger of Jack Webb, who's the incumbent. Matt has come up with an 86% rating with us. Jack Webb, based on these votes, has a 28%. And again, as I say, he's the incumbent and current city council president.
All right, now, we got 3 or 4 districts here now that we're getting to. Victor, is there any need to really talk about them, mention and give comments about they're unopposed? But
Well, there is District 7, there's opposition in that race. Johnny Gaffney, who scores at 28%, and Mark McCullough, who did not respond to our survey yet. We'll have an opportunity for them to respond and update it on the website. And then the next 3 races, 8, 9, and 10, Denise Lee, Warren Jones, and Reginald Brown, all unopposed. And I'll give you the score. Mrs. Lee, 42%, Mr. Jones, 28%, and Reginald Brown, Mr. Brown, 28%. All unopposed, so their constituents will not have an opportunity to vote in their elections.
so that brings us through 10. All right, go
To
ahead,
11.
Victor, and do 11.
Okay, 11 is Council District 11. This seems to be a very tight race. We have Ray Holt scoring who's the incumbent, who's scoring a 28%. Doug Moore, who scores a 86%, and Tom Bain, who also scores an 86%. So it looks like Council District 11, we've got Doug Moore and Tom Bain running very close together at a time. Ray Holt, 28% toward the bottom. Mr. Moore and Mr. Bain apparently did not know how they would have voted for increasing the pension benefit for the jailers. But other than that, they look pretty good across the board. 86% for Doug Moore and Tom Bain.
And that's a race in which Ray Holt is the incumbent. District 11 is a very large district that covers the northern and western portions of the county.
Okay, so that brings us down, where are we, at 13?
Or District 12.
Oh, 12,
Actually,
okay, John.
and one of our, without, by way of, this is not an endorsement, this is simply to mention the fact that Joe Andrews is in fact a member of the Concerned Taxpayers, who was one of the candidates. He scored an 86%. He did not know how he would have voted on the Trail Ridge settlement contract extension. Jim Davis, who has also responded, has 100% by our scale in terms of how he would have voted. Doyle Carter, interestingly enough, has not responded, although he's been given opportunities to. And let me say this, I think the questionnaire, if you'd like to read the actual questions, is also posted on our website so that you can compare directly with what these folks were given and see just how objective I think we were.
Okay. Do you want to do 13? Then John will finish up with 14.
Yeah, let's take us right into 13. We've got 13 is again a very competitive race. We've got Danny Becton, scores a 72%. Dave Smith scores an 86%. Dave Smith is also a member of Concerned Taxpayers.
And a former president.
And a former president. Vanessa Williams scores an 86%. And William Bill Gilliford scores a 28%, not knowing how they would have voted 5 out of 7 instances. So it looks like this race is a close tie between Dave Smith and Vanessa Williams, with Danny Becton coming in right on their tails at 72%, and William Gilliford 28%, not knowing how he would have voted 5 out of the 7 instances. So that looks to be a very competitive race, and look forward to interviewing those candidates.
Yeah, at least according to our scores there.
Yes, yes.
All right, John, let's wrap up the district council. Man, we're going into the district council races. That takes us into District 14.
District 14, which happens to be where I live, which covers the area from Riverside down to Clay County and across to Argyle, has 6 candidates. Now, 5 of these candidates did respond. The sole person who did not respond is Jim Love. Of those responses, a late entrant who responded was Henry Mooneyhan, who scores 100% by our rating. Shelton Hull, who used to write for the Folio, somebody I know, is scored a 58%. Kendall Bryan, who had no answer for one question, did not know his response for another couple of questions, winds up with 28% as a result. Greg Rachel, who is another candidate, comes up with a 58%. Jill Dame, although she agrees with us that Trail Ridge should not have been resolved in the way it was and should have been bid out, only scores a 28% in that race.
Okay. Well, you see what our responses have developed through our questionnaire that we sent to the people that were new candidates, especially to office, and then we had the incumbents' records. Now, Victor, would you like to make some observations about what we've just gone over, and then I'll come to you. Maybe you want to go back and explain maybe to the group a little bit of methodology, and also that we'll remind these people that this is a live document.
Yep.
And if they have a chance to go to our webpage, they send us information that we will add comments that they want to make here, and it might affect their scores or however they want to deal with this. This is a live document. But go to, if you have any comments,
yes.
then we'll go to John.
The thing I'll add is, again, Tony's right that this is a living document, so to speak. It's dynamic. We're updating it on the website almost daily, and as responses come in, we will try to update it and make it as accurate as possible. So we strongly encourage candidates to get their responses in as soon as possible, and we also be interviewing candidates as well for them to give them an opportunity to expand. And you know, the only thing I'd like to add is this: I don't think this has ever been done in Duval County before. I think it's a very good product, and we've worked hard to put this together. And John's done a really good job. And also want to segue in that we will be doing some kind of voter's guide with a very large printing and distribution. So candidates are strongly encouraged to participate in the interview process and get your questionnaires to us as soon as you can, because that will have a cutoff to when we go to print.
Okay, John. Now, let's go into, this is kind of past, if you want to add anything about the methodology or anything about this, but then also let's go into the other plans that we have. John is our candidate committee chairman, and he's also got some other plans about personal interviews with people, so kind of give our listeners a indication of what is coming to the future yet that will be added to our webpage.
Well, yes, obviously, Tony, we don't want to diminish the importance of the mayor's race, and there are also constitutional officers that are coming up. The sheriff has opposition, the property appraiser has opposition, and we will have a new tax collector at the end of the day, since the present one is running for mayor. We are in the process of setting up our interviews with the candidates for all those races. We don't have anything quite as objective as this by which to compare them, but we are going to be asking them, obviously, many of the same questions so that we can try to do a head-to-head comparison based on their responses, which we will incorporate into a voter's guide, which we will put both online and get out in a hard copy edition to as many people as possible. Let me say about this, in developing this particular survey, we went through and picked out of the last year what we thought were 6 very seminal votes in describing the political philosophy of each one of the incumbents and each one of these people that are hoping to gain office. 2 of the questions related to the budget. First question was the actual budget vote that we had in September. The second question was whether or not they voted to raise the property taxes by 9%. The third item, which was the no-bid landfill contract, that actually came up in the spring. That was the settlement of the Trail Ridge case. This is the extension of Waste Management's right to run our landfill for decades. The doubling of the garbage fees we thought was very important, because that had there had been an arrangement whereby the garbage fee, which was introduced several years ago, was only going to go up $1 a month. They went ahead and doubled it, collapsing in what had previously been agreed to by the City Council to be a step increase. Adding ethics to the charter we think is extremely important. It used to be in our charter. It came out during the Godbold administration, and in our opinion, needs to go back in. The Everbank naming rights, this was the deal where essentially we gave up the 25% of the naming rights that we had retained, having previously given up 50% down to 25%. It amounts to being $4 million over 5 years. The last of the items was from 2008. That was a pension vote, and it's the most recent real pension vote that we could come up with to compare people with.
Okay, so we got the candidate interviews coming up in the future, which we'll get information on our webpage. Victor, you got a couple of comments about the places they can go, not only from our webpage, but meet up all the places that they can find information from us.
Yes, I do, Tony. If you go to our website, www.jackstaxpayers.org, there's a tab that says local candidates, and that will take you to the votes for the incumbents and responses to the spreadsheet that we've presented to you today, and also have some more information regarding our interview process, and maybe get the actual handwritten responses up there in some kind of format that you can read. Also on our homepage, there's a link to the meetup group, which is a calendar where we post our calendar of events. So we encourage people to go to the meetup and look at our calendar, see when we're going to be doing these interviews, so you can participate and attend to make sure that they're fair and objective, or to ask questions and mingle with the candidates. And I also want to add that we have a hotline to report waste, fraud, tomfoolery, and also to find out information to join, 904-351-8126. That's 904-351-8126. That's our hotline. Please feel free to call it or text it if you have any information or want to figure out how to join Concerned Taxpayers. We do need your help. So that's all I have, Tony.
John, Candidate Committee Chair, any final comments that you'd like our viewers to?
Yes, I'd like to say that I think that a responsible electorate is an informed electorate, and I'm hoping that we have done our part in educating you and helping you to make what is an intelligent and rational vote coming up in the March 22nd election, and that we plan to do the same thing for the second election. If you don't know where your precinct is, we're going to have a section on our website called Find My Candidate, which will have a link to the precinct finder at the SOE's office so that you can determine just who it is you are allowed to vote for.
Yeah, we'll elaborate on it. All you have to know is your address. You can go into our webpage, put in your address. You can find out which district you are in. What precinct you are in will be your district. So you can go to our webpage, your candidate finder will have it there. Put in your address. That will tell you what precinct you're in, and that precinct number will define which district you're in. So you can find out what race and what candidate's information you need to be looking at. Victor, do they have a way to communicate with us if they had questions they wanted to ask or information from us? Does the public have a place they can communicate with us?
Yes, they can join. If they join the meetup group, they can communicate through us that way. They can also call the phone number. The phone number is a very good way for you to get in contact with us to get information. You can send a text or you can call the number, and somebody from our leadership team will respond to you as soon as possible.
Remember, the telephone number is 904-351-8126. Our webpage is www.jackstaxpayers.org. Also, this information, we have coalitions that we're working with many other organizations to try and affect these elections. The First Coast Tea Party, FCTP, you can go to their webpage. We have joint information being put there. So, in fact, next time, the next show, this will be on for about a month, but the next show, we plan to have the Tea Party chair, spokesman, and leader, Billy Tucker, with us to discuss their issues. We thank you for being with us. This is an important election. Be out, be sure to vote, and be informed. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.